Well, good morning. It's great to be here. It's always a privilege to come back home here and share my heart. And I'm just so impressed with how Mile High Church is persevering and serving in ever greater ways under the leadership of Dr. Michelle and Reverend Joshua. And it's just a beautiful thing to behold. And I just acknowledge them and their ministerial team and the incredible staff here and our practitioners and the board and all of us who stand strong, though we're not physically present. We know of that which connects us, that oneness, and we stand strong for Mile High Church. And I know Erica and I do as we continue to tithe here and look forward to when we can hug on you again. And so accept a virtual hug right now, will you? Accept a hug. And you honoring ones out here, you too. And so love and blessings to you all. I'm excited about all that's going on here. I always have looked forward to when Adventure in Faith starts, a time of going deeper. And so next Sunday, the wonderful team here starts that wonderful theme, which is cultivating certain faith in uncertain times. I think that's I look forward to deepening with that myself and getting those classes that they're talking about. I think this is such an important time for spiritual engagement, to not just sit around and absorb all of those energetics that are so challenging right now, but to take the helm and to steer into the higher frequencies of awareness. And you can do that with the classes. The Greg Braden event looks amazing. So there's so many opportunities here. And be proactive. I urge you and invite you to do that. A bridge over troubled waters. That is pretty much what I want to talk about today. My topic is one river, many wells. One river, many wells. You know, these are very demanding times, challenging times. Emotional strife and concern is pandemic along with COVID-19. And so I want to invite us to go to a realization that is at the heart of what Mile High Church has been about for many decades and what these truth teachings are about, because I think it implies what we can do and be in these times together. One river, many wells. A great 13th century theologian and mystic, one of the greatest mystics, Meister Eckhart, put it so well. God is a great underground river that no one can dam up and no one can stop. Today I want to invite us to go to the core of this universal spirituality that is the underground river, the river out of which the well springs of the many faith paths emerge. And to understand that if there is this underground river that cannot be dammed, then we too are wells into that underground river, and we can draw from that. And we can live with the deep realization that we're all united in the river of the Spirit. Now, Matthew Fox, an excommunicated Catholic priest and founder of Creation Spirituality, he wrote a book of that very title, One River, Many Wells. And he says there is one underground river, but there are many wells into that river. An African well, a Taoist well, a Buddhist well, a Jewish well, a Muslim well, a goddess well, a Christian well, and Aboriginal wells. To go down a well is to practice a tradition, but we would make a grave and idolatrous mistake if we confused the well itself with the flowing waters of the underground river. One river, many wells. Over my many decades of serving here at Mile High and being involved in these teachings, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people have told me that the clincher for them, that moment when they knew they were home here at Mile High Church and that they could follow these teachings to a greater enlightenment, was when they heard in our services, almost always early on in the opening prayer, that we bless all faith paths. We bless the deep mysticism and truth in all the faith paths. And I don't know about you, but years and years ago, when I heard that, it hit me so hard. It's like, yes, of course. No religion has a corner on the truth. All bear expressions, unique expressions of the truth, and all have a rich variety of practices and traditions. And yet they all are emerging out of the underground river, that one river. And that touched me so very, very much. And one of the most outstanding aspects of the spiritual genius of our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, is that he knew of this universal spirituality back in the early 1920s when he began his ministry in a big way. He knew about that. He talked about that. And he knew that there's a spirituality expressing in all the paths and woven into the fabric of every being. And he called this the golden cord of truth. And he saw it weaving its way through all the faith paths and through every expression of humanity. And I always love it in our beautiful sanctuary here, that in the tapestries, we have that vision of that golden cord of truth wending its way as the unifying factor, the divine light through all of what looks like difference and diversity, and brings it back home together in oneness. And Dr. Holmes wanted to design these teachings so that we could not only understand that there is this truth, but we could tap into it and unlock our power. Because if we go right to that core underground river, there's where our potential abides, our power abides. And that's where we can spawn new vision. And we can go forward with a greater confidence at a higher frequency of livingness. And I believe that all of humanity is in this gigantic transformational process of up-leveling our whole thought atmosphere and the frequency of our consciousness. And it's when we know there's this underground river, we can tap into that. And then Dr. Holmes said, so in so doing, we're not in competition with other faith paths. We're here to teach these universal principles, and if somebody has found a faith path that works for them, we bless that. We bless that. We're not in competition. We're in partnership to bring forth a greater light upon this planet. And Dr. Holmes wrote, we are members of everyone's religion. Everyone's religion. Buddhist, Hindu, Confucian, Muslim, Jew, Christian, and even pagan, all partake of the same divine life. Each one has his road to good, to the divine that is latent within everyone. Isn't it wonderful to be a part of that? But yet, are we really a part of it? I'll talk about that a little more later, but it's pretty obvious how sad it is that there's so much divisiveness going on, so much competition, so much conflict, so much separation, especially between the faith paths, between the major religions. And there's the putting one down, or the sense of superiority and exclusivity abounds in some cases. Somebody humorously said, Muslims do not recognize Judaism as a religion. Jews do not recognize Jesus as the Messiah. Protestants do not recognize the Pope as the leader of the Christian church. Baptists do not recognize each other at Hooters. Now, so you see, there's all of that compartmentalizing and conflict. We're at a time where we can't afford that anymore, and we can all be partners in drawing from our shared spiritual roots to source something higher and better for humanity. I met a wonderful Trappist monk named Brother Wayne Teasdale. He became a very good friend of an organization I helped found called the Association for Global New Thought. And later I'll tell you about an experience at one of our conferences that we held with social leaders and the Dalai Lama. In fact, he was a very, very dear friend of the Dalai Lama, and he's the one who connected us with His Holiness. And he writes something so important for us to hear. He says, humanity stands at a crossroad between horror and hope. In choosing hope, we must seed a new consciousness, a radically fresh approach to life, drawing its inspiration from the perennial spiritual and moral insights, intuition, and experience. We call this new awareness interspiritual, implying not the homogenization of religion, but the recovering of the shared mystic heart, beating in the center of the world's deepest spiritual traditions. Oh, that's so very, very powerful. It seems to me that the future of humankind is dim indeed, unless we can find the way and the will to come together in oneness and in love. Love the story of this mother mouse was taking the little mice out for a little walk and to look for their breakfast one morning. And they were scouting around, and all of a sudden they went around a corner and there was a cat. The cat saw them, and the cat began to run toward them, and the mice found themselves cornered in a corner there, and the cat was just about to pounce on them. And all of a sudden the mother mouse steps forward and starts barking. And the cat is so taken aback and shocked by that, it turns tail and runs away. And then the mother mouse turns to her little ones and says, well, now there, children, you can understand the power of learning a second language. Now, I think humanity, if you're like me, humanity feels cornered. And that a lot of stuff is ready to pounce. And what are we going to do about that? Well, perhaps we need to learn or relearn a second language that is all too often forgotten. Our founder, Ernest talks about this. He said, the person who goes deeply into his or her own nature will find that God speaks in a language more subtle than the human language, in that universal language of spiritual emotion, which is instinctive in humanity and held in common by all civilization, by all creation, by all people who have lived. The universal language of spiritual emotion, that felt sense that we're all in a universal river. And diversity springs up out of that in every way. And yet home is in that river. And we need to start learning how to speak that language. To speak that language. Dr. Holmes also was very clear that religion is a response to this river. It's not the source of it, it's a response to it. He said religion is a reaction to humanity's spirituality, the outward form of an inward conviction. We don't need to discuss the merits or demerits of other people's religions. The power in all religions is in the spiritual principles involved and in our conscious unity with these principles. Now, I've been a student of world religions for a long time, and I can tell you that the similarity of the mysticism of all the faiths is phenomenal. And I don't have time to go into all of these similarities, but you do just a little study and you find that they're all trying in their own language, in their own way, and through their own images and metaphors to convey the same things about the love that God is, about the power of prayer, about the necessity of faith, even when the winds of change are blowing strongly. They talk about us as peacemakers. They talk about healing energies. And the similarity and the beauty of the various ways, like a facet of a diamond that they speak to these qualities is incredible. And I love that. And that's why the mission of Mile High Church, the vision and mission, is so essential. And it was shared at the beginning of this service. Oneness revealed. A world of love, peace, and abundance for all. Never has there been a more important time for us to stand for and to express oneness revealed. To remember that when we're barraged by the broadcasts of naysayers and doubters and angst and rancor and divisiveness and name-calling, and as we look at erosion planetarily in various ways, for us to remember that shared second language and to speak to that, to speak to oneness revealed, and to have a stand in our prayer life for oneness revealed, in our conversations with others, to make sure that we're not letting our own vibratory levels get dampened and put down, but that instead, in the midst of all that we stand, we are like those who can go to the eye of a hurricane and stand in the calm center of that, though everything is swirling about, and say, this I know, that there's one spirit, there's one river. And that's where I'm coming from. And that's not only what I'm going to believe, that's what I'm going to broadcast. That's where I'm going to stand. And I know that at this time, increasing numbers of people are doing the very same thing. And we need to hold faith with that. I believe that the reason this matters to you and me is that we're here because we chose to be here. You might say, no, my parents chose to have me here. Yeah, but I believe you're a soul that chose your parents and chose the whole process of incarnating here. You chose to be here. You chose to be here in these times. You chose to be a part of this transformational process that's going on our planet. It's not about hiding out. It's not about thinking that you don't matter. It's not going back to playing small thought in your life. You came here so that you could use these times to reveal your greatness, to make a difference you can make in simple but powerful ways that you and I can make. I believe you came here to be a spiritual warrior. And I want to invite you to do that. Because I believe that everything else in your life will start working in a better way when you have a higher agenda rather than just surviving all of this. When you no longer choose to get involved in all the rancor and all the dissonance, that you know there's a higher vibration of thought and mind, and you go there and you hang out there. And you're committed to that. And you add your own energy, since it's a field of invisible oneness. You add to it. Every time you stand, that there's one river. And I'm not going to get caught up in making wrong all the other wells, the other viewpoints, the other nations, the other ethnicities. I'm not going to get involved in that. I'm going to a higher place. A guy named John Powell suggests that we as a species have gotten lost in something called othering. We've looked at the diversity of life and opinions and ethnicity and religion and relational orientation and gender, and we've made that which we're not the other. And in so doing, we subtly refuse to sense that there's divinity and possibility in the other. They're the not me, the other. And what happens when we get into othering is we essentially build an empathetic wall, an empathy wall, where it's very difficult for us when we're caught up in the otherness to have empathy for the situations and the plights, and also empathy for what we share together. It's very difficult to do that. What we need to do is go beyond othering and become about belonging. To write a new story within our own hearts and in all that we're about, because we've decided to be the spiritual warriors we came here to be. And in so doing, we're saying we all belong. We're all a part of this river. All the faith paths are a part of the underlying river of spirit, and so are all peoples, all nations, all ethnicities, all of the diversities and the richness of humanity, all a part of that. And I speak that, I resonate to that, I support and champion that, and I use that to keep myself on higher ground. That bridge over troubled waters is this oneness revealed. So let me conclude today with 3 suggestions for how to really be the powerful spiritual warrior I know you came here to be. First of all, embrace your inner mystic. Embrace that part of you that said, oh yeah, when you heard that we bless all faiths, when we bless the mysticism in all faiths. By the way, I would say we don't always bless what all faiths do, especially those faiths which distort true spirituality through extremism. We don't bless that, but we do bless the mystic heart of truth that runs through all faiths. Go to that inner mystic that senses that revels in that delights in that, and put some energy there. Seek to embrace even more that you're a mystic. Now, really what a mystic is one who knows the presence of God and loves the presence of God in everything and everyone. That's a mystic. And we are all practical mystics. We are all modern-day mystics, ever becoming more light beings. You are a luminous light being, shining brighter and brighter and brighter. And these times don't have the power to put a blanket on your light. You can shine even brighter in these times. But go to that part of you that innately is willing to love life and love others, even when we don't understand them, even when we don't agree with them. Remembering that science is now telling us that in the space, at the heart of atoms and cells, in the space there that eventually becomes form, there's light. And the mystic knows that light at the heart of all creation is the divine. Is the divine. And it's refracted in different ways, different colors of light out of the pure white light. And I just invite you to embrace the mystic in you that senses this and turn up the volume of that aspect of you. Stand as a vibration of that. Go to the place of an inner mystic. Step away. Take that bridge from being a cynic to an inner mystic. And know this truth. And then you can speak it, you can represent it in your day-to-day living. Embrace your inner mystic. And then secondly, empower your holy imagination. One of the most devastating things that can happen at a time like this is that we reduce our sense of hope, our sense of faith, and our sense of expectancy for good, for humanity. But you see, that's a choice we make in response to what's going on. What's going on doesn't do that to us. We choose that. We choose to worship at the altar of conditions. But that's not what we're here for as a spiritual warrior. No, we are here to align with something higher in our lives. We're here to begin to write a new story, to imagine something more. And as so many people have said, including my good friend Barbara Marks Hubbard, who passed over about a year and a half ago, she has said so clearly, as have others, that crisis and chaos precede transformation. And they're seeking to birth a higher order. Well, we're right in the birth pains here, aren't we, gang? We are right in the birth pains. But don't lose sight of that. No, and cultivate your holy imagination, one of the greatest gifts you've been given, to be a co-creator with the divine that casts everything forth as first an idea, and to craft a bigger idea about what's going on. And this is not fantasy. Somebody said, oh, get real. No, reality comes forth out of what we buy into and what we know is true. And so we need people who can imagine beyond what is. As a spiritual warrior, that's your gift and your calling. So I invite you definitely to empower your holy imagination about your life as well. Imagine your life more than the conditions that are going on. You have situations, but you're not your situations. You have a history, but you're not your history. You have a story, but you're not that story. What shall you be? Imagine it. Give your heart to it. And let's join together vibrating at that higher level as we empower our holy imagination, which then leads to the third step as a spiritual warrior, and that is to engage your miracle-working heart. To take that sense of your mystic knowing and your imagination, and then let your heart produce miracles as it can and will. There's something so great in your heart, beloved ones, something so great in our heart. That's where we really experience that one river out of which emerge many wells. In the diaries of Mother Teresa, there's a time when she was awakened and told that a Hindu mom and her kids were nearly starving to death and they needed emergency care now. So Mother Teresa and an assistant grabbed a bag of rice and they rushed over to the home, the hovel of this lady, this Hindu lady. And they set the bag of rice down in the middle of the floor of this one-room hovel and began to attend to the children. At one point, Mother Teresa looked around and couldn't see the Hindu woman or the bag of rice. And this concerned her greatly. A few moments later, the Hindu woman returned and the bag of rice was only half full now. She set it down, and eventually Mother Teresa asked her what happened. Is rice missing? And the Hindu woman simply shook her head and said, they are hungry too. They were a Muslim family living next door. Same situation, a mom and some children starving. Our wonder-working heart. And let me share with you again something I've shared before, but it lives as one of the key moments. The Association for Global New Thought that I helped found, we created 3 dialogues over a course of about 8 years that involved social and spiritual leaders meeting together, and then we would welcome in the Dalai Lama and take our conversations to a higher level. At the last one of these in 2011, we were just getting everybody registered, and all of a sudden, a very dynamic young rabbi from Israel encountered a very vocal female Muslim journalist on the stairs, and immediately they were angry at each other. Immediately the accusations and the venom started to flow. Well, we were made aware of this, and we, the conveners, went and separated them and said, let's bring this into the dialogues that are going to emerge in these next 7 days. Let's bring this into that. And so we conveners huddled and said, oh boy, what have we gotten ourselves into? But somehow we knew there was opportunity here. So the next morning, after introductions and welcoming and some ceremony, we put those two together amidst about 100 of us, very high caliber, wonderful people. And they started right at it again. One person would say, you did this, your people did this. And the other would say, oh, no, your people did this. And it was never ending. The digest of complaints and bitterness was just never ending. It went beyond lunch into the second half of the day. And at the end of the day, we thought, are we really getting anywhere? Well, we had a guy with us named Bill Urey, who wrote The Third Side and a number of other books. And he said, we need to be the third side here. We need to hold a container of something bigger than their polarities. And he said, let's do that. And we can do that by asking them to talk about some things bigger than what they have been. So the next morning, they got together and we said to them, talk to each other about the pain you feel over these many generations of warring and killing. And they started talking about their pain. And to their shock, their pain was identical. And then we asked them, and talk about your dreams for your children and your future generations. And as each one of them articulated their dreams, they found that those were entirely identical. By the end of that session, they were hugging each other and tears flowing down their face. And they became inseparable through the rest of the conference. To me, that is the miracle working of the heart. A 16-year-old girl named Amy Maddox, she wrote, he prayed, it wasn't my religion. He ate, it wasn't what I ate. He spoke, it wasn't my language. He dressed, it wasn't what I wore. He took my hand, it wasn't the color of mine. But when he laughed, it was how I laughed. And when he cried, it was how I cried. So I just invite us to meditate more upon the universal river of the Spirit. It sources all the faith paths, and yet is the ultimate reality of them all. Sources all nations, all peoples, all of creation, and yet holds it all in its embrace of love. And I just invite us to be spiritual warriors on behalf of oneness revealed. That through our inner mystic and our imagination and our heart-directed action, we start creating a world that can work for everyone. And our lives will work better as well. I love you and bless you in that. Let's have a prayer together.